If you buy or sell anything online in Nepal, listen up because everything has just changed. The country has rolled out its very first comprehensive e-commerce act, and it's a landmark law that's designed to regulate the entire digital marketplace. So whether you're a customer just trying to buy something or you're a business owner, you absolutely need to know what these new rules mean. Let's start with what's at stake.
I want to start with a number, 500,000 rupees. Now that is not a revenue goal, it's a potential penalty under this new law. And it's not just a fine, it can also come with up to 3 years of jail time. The government is sending a very clear signal here. They're taking online business very, very seriously.
So, if you're a small business owner, maybe you're using a website, an app, or even just a social media page to sell your products, this affects you directly. The days of operating in a sort of legal gray area, they're over, and not knowing these new rules could put your whole operation in jeopardy. To really understand why this law was so necessary, you have to look at what the e-commerce world was like before. For years, it was basically the online Wild West, with almost no specific rules to govern any of it. This lack of a clear legal framework, well, it created a super risky environment for everybody. As a buyer, you didn't really know what your rights were. And if you were a legitimate seller, you struggled to build trust in a market where literally anyone could set up shop with zero accountability.
And this created, well, kind of a nightmare scenario for everyone. If you were a buyer and you got something that didn't match the description, you were often just out of luck. For honest businesses, this lack of trust was just toxic, forcing them to compete with shady operators who could just vanish without a trace.
And that is exactly the problem that this new E-commerce Act 2025, or 2081 in the Bikram Sambat calendar, is trying to solve. You should think of it as the first official rulebook for Nepal's entire digital economy.
But look, this law isn't just about punishment. Its real mission is to build a foundation of trust. The whole goal is to protect consumers, create clear rules for businesses, and, at the end of the day, make the digital marketplace a much safer place for everyone to be. To do this, the Act first defines two main types of online businesses. Now, understanding which category you fall into is absolutely critical. An intermediary business is basically a marketplace, a platform that hosts lots of different sellers. A list-based e-commerce business is a company that sells its own products directly to you from its own website or app. And each one has very different responsibilities under this new law.
Okay, so what does this all mean for you if you're selling online? The law introduces several new obligations that are, well, they're not optional.
The single biggest change is mandatory registration. Every single online business, from a huge website to a tiny little app, now has to apply on the official government portal. You'll need your business documents, and then you'll get an official listing number. It's a formal process designed to bring everyone out of that gray market.
And this right here is the critical deadline. If you were already running an online business before this law came into effect, you have a 3-month grace period to get registered and comply with all the new rules. The clock is officially ticking.
This is a huge step forward for digital trust. The CADASA Act now officially recognizes electronic contracts. You know that little I agree button that customers click for your terms and conditions? Well, guess what? It is now as legally valid and enforceable as a physically signed document. This gives both you and your customers real legal certainty.
Of course, this isn't just about rules for sellers. From a buyer's perspective, this act is a massive empowerment tool. It introduces a whole new level of protection that, frankly, just didn't exist before.
This marks a fundamental power shift. Where buyers once had very little recourse, they now have clear, unconditional rights. So, if you get the wrong item or you're facing unfair delays, you are now legally entitled to a full refund. And silence is no longer an option for businesses. They are now required by law to respond to any complaints within 15 days.
The Act also brings in some crucial data privacy rules. Businesses are now legally obligated to protect your personal information. They can't just sell it or use it for things that have nothing to do with your purchase. And importantly, you have the right to access and control your own data.
So with new rules and new rights come new responsibilities, and some pretty serious consequences for ignoring them. Let's take a look at exactly what's at stake.
The core principle here is accountability at every single level. Sellers are responsible for what they promise. Marketplaces are responsible for fairness and for keeping records. And businesses that sell their own goods are responsible for transparency, right down to avoiding things like fake reviews. And the consequences for failing are spelled out in detail. Simply operating without being registered can cost you up to 50,000 rupees. Failing to honor a refund could cost you up to 300,000 rupees. And if you're caught using misleading ads or posting fake reviews, you could be facing that massive 500,000 rupee fine and potential jail time that we talked about right at the very beginning.
Now, no law is perfect, and this one has definitely faced some criticism. Some platform operators feel like they're being unfairly burdened with responsibility for what third-party sellers do. There's also some ambiguity about how these rules apply to the really small sellers who just use social media. And some requirements, like product labeling on the platform, are seen as a bit redundant since they're already covered by other laws.
So, this leaves us with the big question. Is this new act the key to creating a safer, more trustworthy digital economy for Nepal, or will its strict requirements become a major hurdle for the very small businesses and entrepreneurs it's also supposed to be supporting? The answer is probably going to be a bit of both, and the coming months will be absolutely crucial for seeing how this new digital rulebook actually shapes the future.